So in today's lecture, we are going to create a login page, login screen, and after that, we'll try to uh, do the authentication on the server, right? So the focus in this lecture would be just to create the login screen. Okay, so in the last lecture, let's see where we were. So this was the front page of the website that we had created in the last lecture, and we applied all the CSS and everything, and we had used a template website from the bootstrap. We downloaded a free version of the template, and then we customized that to fit into our Angular application. Okay, so we'll start with the login screen, but before that, I just want to make one change. This portion, the first portion here, the header portion, it's not visible here. The color is not visible, so I just want to quickly make this color change, and then we'll start with the login component. So if I go here, Angular IDE and header component.html, you can see here all the CSS applied to this. These are the ones. Instead of, okay, so all these things are good, BG dark, but I want to, so this is background dark, and these CSS you can see in the styles.css, which all the assets are here, assets, CSS, styles.css. So these stylings are coming from here. For example, for the PG dark, we are using this color. What I want to do, I want to use a, let's say, it's BG white, background white, but I want to use another style. I want to say text color white, and for that the styling is just the color. Okay, so color of that element would be white because we are using this. So we need to use this style where we want to use it, and I want to use this on the header component here. I just want to say that I also want to use this text color white. Save it, and let's go back to the browser and see. So this color has become white now. That's okay. Anyways, later we are going to hide this header portion on this front page, and we'll only show this after the user has successfully logged in. Okay. Also, we'll need to like for this is just a demo project, so we are focusing on the functionality. So, but later we can customize these uh, wordings and all. Okay. So let me start on the login component now. So go here. This is Angular ID, and you can see that I started the Angular application from this terminal itself, the terminal which is within that IDE here, this one. You can do it from here, or if you want, you can open a command prompt window and separately and do run your commands from there, right? So if I go here, okay, so you can open a command window here. Then you go to the root of your Angular, which is here. And then you can start your application from here by writing ng serve. But I wrote this command directly in the IDE, so our application, Angular application, is running currently from here. Now I want to create a login component. So I can create, like I said, you can go and create from here, or if you want, you can have another window here itself, and you can create from here as well. Okay, to create a login component, we write ng generate component, and I want to give it name login. So we'll create the skeleton files for us, and then we'll customize that. Okay, so these files have been created. You can see here login component has been created, and we have got the skeleton files here. Okay, so nothing here in the code yet, and this is the corresponding HTML. Okay, so now the component has been created. Now I want to link this. I want to access this component from somewhere. What I want to do is that here on this front page, after contact, maybe I'll put a login link, and then when I click on this, we want to open the login screen here in this section. Okay, so let me do that. So we'll need to go to this place where we have this thing, and this is coming from the main page component. So main page component here, and then here you can see. So if I search for this contact, okay. So here about services, portfolio, and contact. This is coming from here, right? So I just want to add one more thing here. I want to say login. Okay, so I'll say login here. Okay, and then I want to link that this click. I want to link with the login component. So for that, we'll use an Angular thing here to route this request to that login component. And for that, we need to specify router link. And I'm saying that it is going to be login. Okay. And then we need to configure this in our app routing module. App routing here. We need to specify a path here like this. So we have to configure one path for this, like for the login thing. We want to say that go to the login page component. Login component that we have just created. Right? This one we just created, and this login component is in here. If you open this, we just created this, right? So this is login component. Okay. So now if you go and open the web browser, you can see we have login here, and this is the main page component. We haven't saved it yet. Save it. So when you click on this, you get login box. So now this portion is coming from the login component that we just created, right? So that's how we just created a login component, and we linked it with the login link on the front page. Okay, we just to summarize quickly, we just added one link here on the main page. That's why we are seeing on the front page. If you go now, you can see this login thing here, and then when you click on this, you want to open the login component in this section. So I provided a router link with the login. This is a path, and I want to map this. So you go to the app routing module here, you create one entry here, path login, and whatever component you want to load. I want to load this login component. That's how it's working. So now you can customize this, and you can say whatever you want to display here. So obviously for the login screen, you want to say that you want to take the username and password, right? And then you want to pass it on to the backend, to the server, to authenticate the user. So what we can do, we can say like just a like a form, and then you can say what input. I'm just writing. I just want to show the layout, and then we'll customize this. Here to this, I want to have one password, just a template skeleton, or just a like layout I'm creating. Okay, like this, and then we'll have a button on this, right? So a button, something like this, right? So if we save this and go back to the screen, you see something like this: username and password and submit, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to enter the username and a password and submit it, and then on the click of this, when you submit on this, you want to do the authentication. You will make the call to server to authenticate, right? So this is a plan, but now we'll make it look good. So we'll use some styling, everything, right? So for that, I'll use a login page from one of my existing projects, just for like, quickly copying that code. And this is my reference project, which is already on production. So I'll be using, so whenever you see this black screen, so that's my reference project, nothing to do with our current project, but I'll just copy some code from here to quickly move, right? So this is our, this thing is our, let's copy this login page. I want to put it here in our project, and I'll explain quickly what's happening here. So the div tag, and then here we are just saying that use this background image. So we are not using this, we are using user service as the base href, user service. And here also we'll write user service, because that's what we are using as the base href, user service. And then here, this is the, let's call it just login. And then earlier we were just writing simple input for user and password. Now what we are doing is a form, and we want to bind these username and password field to the Angular form, so that we can easily get the values entered into these fields to our Angular form object, and then we can pass it on to the server to easily get authenticated. So that's how we are using this form thing. I'll come to this, and then on this is how you do the event handling in the Angular. So there are multiple, all the events, we can see the reference document. For the ng submit, for the submit of that, you put this, like, you put here ng submit, and this is the syntax of Angular for the event handling. You put a bracket around, and then this is the method that I want to call, right? So this method must be present in the login component.ts, because that's what you want to call. We'll have to write one method here on submit, and for the time being, let's just put alert to authentication. Then later we'll put our actual code here. Okay, so this is one thing, and then simply for the Angular form, right, for each element, one element will be username. So we are creating this section for that. Another element or field on the page will be the password. So for that we have this section, and then there is a button. For that we have this section. Okay, and then if there is any problem or something, then we are checking here and we are displaying the error message. That's how in Angular you print a variable, right? So error message would be a variable that will be using in our, again, in any variable, anything that comes from here, login component.ts. So we use this here, login component.ts, and we'll set the value there. And if in case there is any problem, this is another variable that will be using in this login component.ts, and we are checking here that if invalid login ng, if we are checking here, this is the condition in Angular. So if invalid login, if it is true, then the style we are setting red, color will be red, and this message will be displayed. Okay, and then this section same. So here this section, under the form we have this div, and this is label username, and then type text, and then this is the form control, and this form control name is username. So we'll create an Angular form in our login component.ts, and we have to be sure that the when we create the form should have the fields username. This is the form control names. Username should have one username, and then password. These two things will be there. Okay, so for that, what we'll do, we'll copy that portion for the login component ts also from a from the reference project, and then we'll change that. So login component.ts in my reference project. So I'm just opening this. I'm copying it all here from here, and then I'll just take whatever we need in our project. So here, let me paste it, because it's the same name, so it would not conflict. Now I don't want to take everything from here. For the time being, let me remove all of these things. Just the Angular core libraries, and we are using Angular form, so we'll need this library also. And then okay, so this is the login form, right? So we need a form group from Angular, right? So this is how you create the login form, and this is the login form we are using on the HTML here to bind those fields, right? So this is the login form here. We have this to match, and these are the couple of variables in invalid login and error message. Okay, and then in the constructor we are using all these services. We'll use them later when we start making the call to server. So for the time being, I want to keep it simple for now. So I just remove this all, and on submit, we'll do all these things later, like I said. For the time being, I just want to say that the submit method has been called, right? We'll not even use this thing. Let me clean all of this for now. I'll just say alert on submit. We just say that do authentication. Okay, and on init, so ng on init is the, like, it's a life cycle method. So this code will be executed before the corresponding HTML page, which is this one, gets loaded, right? So here we want to initialize the form. So I'm just saying this dot login form. This is our long Angular form, right? This is login form. So I want to specify what this form is. So this is the syntax for that. You will use the form builder group. So one is username, and then we have a password, and then we are using a domain also. But domain, I'm simply, like, if you don't need, you don't do that. I'll just keep it, and we are just hard coding it, so we don't need to even like put a field here on the form, right? Or you can simply remove this thing. So username, the default value is blank. Password, default is blank. And then this second thing is the validate any validations or list of validations that you want to apply. So I'm saying, so this is again the Angular way of doing that. You can see the reference documents. Validators.compose. We use that when you want to club multiple validations. And this is an array of validations. First one is validators dot required, so which means that we are making this field as username as mandatory, right? It cannot be blank. And the second one is that validators max length 20, so you cannot user cannot enter more than 20 characters. Okay, and similarly for the password, we have same validations, and that's it. Okay, so this is our Angular, very simple Angular login component. Here we just initializing a form because we want to use this form on the HTML, and these are the variables username and password, and these are we are going to bind here. That's how we bind. This is a login form, and this input type we are binding to this username, and this is a password, we are binding to the password. Okay, that's how we bound them. And then that's it. So let's see what's happening now on the browser. This is invalid login and error message. These two variables we are using, but we haven't done anything yet for them, so we'll set them as well later. Okay, let's go to the browser now. Can bind to form group since it's isn't a known property of form. Okay, let me go back to the project again, and login component.html form group. It could not find the form group, so let me go to the Angular main module here, right? So our main module here is app module.ts, and we need to import any libraries that we want to use. So here we have a browser module, app routing module, but I'm not seeing any form module, right? So we'll need to have one form module here. We want to import. So here, okay. So the problem was that because we did not have the reactive forms module, you need the reactive forms module in order to use the forms in the component, right? So here we were using this, sorry, the login here. You're using this form group, right? And if you go here, it's coming from here. We created this login form of type form group. We had imported things, but then this library was not available so far in our module. So that's why it was failing. So what we had to do, we went to the our module and imported the reactive forms module. Okay. So now our login page is working, right? So if you go to the front page, this is our front page, and we introduce this login link here. When you click on this, we are routing this to our login component. Click on this, that gets loaded in this section. Okay, so that's the screen part of this. Now when we enter something here, we want to, and then when you submit, right? So let's see what's happening. Okay, do authentication. That's what we are on the click of login, we are calling on submit method here, right? So if you see here in the login component.html, so this is the button, and on submit of this, when you submit a form, this method gets called on submit. This method will be called, it should be available here. It's on submit, we are just doing do authentication, that's it. So this is our login screen, and in the next lecture we are going to see how to send this form data to our Spring Boot service for the authentication, and then we'll get some response back. Okay, so we'll create a service on this side, on Angular side. We'll create a client service that will make the REST call, and then after that we'll create our Spring Boot application that will do the authentication. Okay, so thanks for joining this lecture, and see you shortly.